No looking at the windows. Submitted by Killmonger V1. Some years back, I was on a month-long business trip in Beijing, China when I decided to visit an old friend of mine. I'll just refer to him as Liang here. Liang's family migrated to China after we graduated high school because of his dad's work. We lost contact for a while until I chanced upon his Facebook profile. Since then, we exchanged a few messages and well wishes, and I figured it wouldn't hurt to pay him a visit IRL since I was in the country. When Liang knew that I was in China, he was also eager to see me in person. We agreed to meet at his place in the city of Xinjiang, some 1,000 kilometers away from the capital. The only way to reach there was by train, and back then the high-speed rail didn't exist yet. Thus, I booked myself a ticket on an overnight sleeper train. The ticket was dirt cheap considering the distance, and I understood why when I saw the rickety communist-era train waiting at the platform. Many of the passengers were migrant workers heading back to their hometowns, and I could feel curious glances thrown in my direction as I squeezed through the cramped corridor onto my bunk bed. We departed from Fengtai at dusk, the golden rays filtering through the grimy grease-covered windows. I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke wafting through the stale air and scrunched my nose. The stiff padding that made up my mattress had a funny smell, and I wasn't sure if I would want to lie down on it for even a second. The guy occupying the bunk above mine had gone to sleep despite the constant vibrations and jerks, his snores matching the rhythmic rumbling of the train. A man sitting on a folding seat along the corridor slurped away at a steaming cup of instant ramen. Somewhere out of sight, the Nokia ringtone rang loudly for a few seconds before being silenced. Xiongdi, the young man sitting cross-legged on the opposite bunk said in a coarse voice as he pointed at the plastic bag on my pillow. Please? I gave him a brief stare. He wore a cheap gray Oxford shirt and denim jeans, and held a pack of cigarettes in his wrinkly hand that proudly displayed the communist emblem. I sighed and passed him a can of beer. I had bought a pack of them from the convenience store at the station as a gift to Liang, but I figured I could always buy more at the next station. He popped the green can open and gulped down the lukewarm booze. Watching him, I felt the urge to drink too and opened my own can. You can speak English? I asked. A little. He paused and held up the can. Tsingtao beer, very nice. Very good taste. Ah. I drank some of it and didn't really think it was anything remarkable, but I didn't let my displeasure show on my face. Smoke? He took out a cigarette from the pack and offered it to me. No smoke. He seemed disappointed and kept it back in the pack. You, go where? Xinjiang, I replied curtly. Visiting a friend. Ah, Xinjiang. He paused, as if trying to form his words in his mouth. I go Qingtai, very old city. Many temples and history. Oh. I wasn't sure how to reply to him, but apparently I didn't have to, because he immediately switched topics, asking about where I was from, what I do and other miscellaneous details that he would probably forget after reaching his destination. The carriage lights flickered on promptly at 7 p.m., as the night began to encroach upon the land. My newly formed acquaintance opened up his hard-shell suitcase and tossed a cup of instant ramen still wrapped in plastic to me. Follow me. I didn't have the heart to tell him I already had dinner before boarding the train, so I trailed behind him as he navigated through the crowded passageway to the end of the carriage. There was a squat toilet without a door on the left, and a mini kitchen to my right. A man was already inside filling his bottle with hot water, and from the look on his face I could tell he was a friend of my acquaintance. Tashi Shui? He asked, to which my acquaintance replied something in coarse Mandarin. They conversed for a while before the man left the kitchen. My friend, the young man explained while filling his cup of noodles with hot water. He told me to tell you this. He placed his cup aside and began filling my cup. The train will turn off lights at 10. Cannot look outside until lights on again tomorrow morning. Huh? Lights. He pointed at the small fluorescent lamp on the ceiling and made a clicking sound. Switch off. No looking at the windows. No look, understand? Oh. I nodded my head. He gave a relaxed smile and returned to his usual demeanor, much to my puzzlement. At around 9:30, after many rounds of beer and chatting, the young man rested his head on the hard pillow and retired for the night. I swirled the stale brown liquid inside my beer can mindlessly as I leaned against the cream carriage wall. The narrow carriage passageway was empty, save for a lone woman smoking in the gangway. A strange quiet descended upon the carriages. The only noises that could be heard were creaks and rattles as the train snaked across the countryside. Wanshan Station, an announcement hissed through the mold cake speaker grills. A minute later, the train screeched to a halt at an unlit platform. I glanced out of the window and saw only the faint glow from the carriages illuminating the small desolate rural station. Unsurprisingly, not a single passenger got up to alight, nor did anyone come out of the tiny station building to board the train. I heard faint voices coming from the next carriage and peeked my head out. The conductor was walking briskly down the passageway, asking the remaining passengers to return to their bunks. "Any passengers to Shijiazhuang City?" he shouted once he entered my carriage. "Shijiazhuang City, anyone?" No one gave a reply, so he hurried down to the adjacent carriage, shouting the same question yet again. The young man turned to his side and continued to snore softly. The carriage lights flickered unsteadily as the train jerked forward and pulled out of the station. A man from the neighboring compartment got out and hastily pulled all the curtains over the windows along the corridor. "All passengers, kindly note that this train will not be stopping at the following stations: Huangdu, Kuangfengdian, Dingzhou, Beishidian, Chenggenpu, Xinla." The list of skip stations being recited through the speakers seemed to go on endlessly. At the end of the announcement, there was a loud chime. All the carriage lights simultaneously extinguished, plunging the entire train into near total darkness. This was starting to freak me out a bit, so I made a conscious effort to turn my gaze away from the windows as I lay down on the stiff hard bed. The funny smell from earlier still lingered on the surface, much to my disgust. Still, I forced myself to close my eyes and try to sleep. When I cracked open my eyes after what felt like hours of restless tossing and turning, the interior of the carriage was still dark. My poor throat felt as dry as the Gobi Desert, so I reached my hand out to feel for my suitcase. With one hand, I managed to unzip it and retrieve my water bottle. Thump! A violent jerk from the train abruptly caused me to release my grip. The water bottle fell onto the floor and rolled out of the compartment into the corridor. "Shit," I remember thinking. I rubbed my eyes and sat up on my bunk bed, trying to locate my bottle. It was then that I realized the jerk was caused by the train stopping at a station. Through the translucent fabric, I could see the bright glow of platform lights and shadows moving across the windows. In my half-asleep state, I couldn't comprehend what was going on. The train wasn't supposed to stop at any stations until Xingtai the next morning, so why did it stop? At a major station from the looks of it, no less. I guess curiosity got the better of me, because before I knew it I was crawling on the floor into the dark empty corridor. I picked up my bottle and realized that I could even faintly hear people chatting among themselves on the platform outside. I looked up and spied a small gap in between the curtains where the light shone through the brightest. Just a peek, I told myself. I had to know why every local on this train was so scared of looking out the windows at night when there didn't seem to be anything strange going on outside. I began to slowly raise my body up, too afraid to even make the slightest noise. Was I scared of waking my fellow passengers up, or was I scared of alerting anyone that could be outside to my presence? I didn't know, but as my eyes reached the window frame, I started to shake uncontrollably. Like as though a raw, primal fear of the unknown had taken over my body. I could feel every fiber of my being warning me not to move any further. A chime sounded in the distance, reverberating across the empty passageway eerily. It was the signal that the train would be departing soon. This was the final chance for me to peek outside. I kept telling myself that, but my limbs were completely frozen in place. I heard the doors shut and the train began to move again. At this, I felt the pressure on my body ease and I let out a breath I didn't know I had been holding in the entire time. I hastily got up and peeked through the curtains. There was nothing but a thick, dense forest shrouded in pitch black darkness outside. I still don't know how to explain what happened to the station to this day. It was like all traces of the platform, the people and the bright lights were simply erased out of existence. I quickly closed back the curtains and quietly returned to my bunk bed. At 6 a.m. sharp, the carriage lights flickered back on, and with that, the usual hustle and bustle returned to the carriage. The conductor came to our compartment and gave the young man his ticket back. "Sleep good?" he asked with a mysterious smile while packing his suitcase. I could only nod my head back at him. "Xingtai Station. Thanks for the beer, Xiongdi." He got up and rolled his suitcase cheerfully out of the compartment. "See you." I watched him alight from the carriage with the guy in the kitchen from last night. That was the last time I ever saw the young man, but till this day his words still stick to me whenever I board a long-distance train.